I managed to get about 2/3 of my normal morning nap time in before the tapping started. "Chester," I mumbled, "get off my eyeballs." "Then wake up, Harold. This is urgent." Recalling our last conversation and thinking that Bunnicula might indeed be in the black bag in the guest room, I forced my eyes open. "People are going to arrive soon, Harold. We have to act fast. Toby and Mrs. Monroe are out looking for Bunnicula. Not that they're going to find him. And Mr. Monroe is in the kitchen making lunch." "Does he need help?" I asked, suddenly wide awake. "Is that what's urgent?" See, there was the smell of pot roast in the air. The urgent smell of pot roast. "No, he does not need help," Chester said emphatically. "Now pay attention. Pete's up in his room doing who knows what, and Howie's in there doing who knows what with him. The point is, the coast was finally clear, so I stationed myself outside the guest room, and you will not believe what I heard. Bunnicula's in danger, Harold. Real and immediate danger." The hairs began to rise along my back. "What makes you think so?" "I heard Miles say to Edgar, he doesn't have to remain a rabbit. I could just turn him into a bat like the others." "The others, Harold. There have been others before Bunnicula. Andy said, 'Yes, I'll do it.' And then he said, 'Edgar, what would I do without you?'" "So Edgar really is his right-hand bird," I commented. Chester narrowed his eyes and nodded knowingly. "I told you that crow was no good." "But he hasn't said nevermore," I pointed out. "Oh, when he gets his voice back he will, Harold. But we've got to stop him before he does. We've got to stop them both." "But how? What can we do?" "We have to break into the room. Right away, before it's too late. Follow me." I gulped. We could get into serious trouble breaking into the guest room, but I was convinced we had no choice. As we climbed the stairs, I was haunted by several thoughts. 1. Bunnicula might already have been turned into a bat. 2. I, too, might be turned into a bat. 3. That pot roast sure smells good. When we got to the guest room door, it was wide open. Chester and I poked our heads in. "There's no one here," I observed. "No one except Bunnicula," Chester said. "Bunnicula? Where? I don't see him." Chester nodded in the direction of the black bag sitting on the bed. "I'll try to set him free, while you stand guard," he said. "Hopefully the transformation hasn't already taken place." I have to admit I was rather touched by Chester's new protectiveness toward Bunnicula. For years he had tried to destroy the bunny, believing it was a vampire. But then, after saving Bunnicula from a near-death experience, Chester changed his tune. He still thinks Bunnicula is a vampire, but he has become his friend and protector. After all, he reasons, Bunnicula only attacks vegetables. What's the harm in that? I can't tell you how many times in the past I had said those very same words to Chester. But Chester has to come to things on his own time, in his own way, before he'll believe them to be true. "Are you standing guard?" he asked. "Standing guard," I replied as he jumped up on the bed. My eyes and ears were open to the prospect of Miles or Edgar's return from wherever they'd gone. But it was not my eyes or ears that tipped me off to trouble. It was my nose. Being a dog, I have a finely tuned sense of smell, and I admit that it was fully engaged with the pleasurable scent of pot roast wafting up from the kitchen. So fully engaged, in fact, that at first I didn't notice the other odor coming from the opposite direction. But when I did smell it, it set off an alarm in my brain at once. "Chester!" I cried. "We may be too late!" Chester looked up abruptly from where he was hunched over Miles' black bag. "What do you mean?" he asked. "I've almost got this clasp open." "But I don't think Bunnicula is in there," I told him. "I think he's in another room being transformed into a bat this very minute. Can't you smell it?" Chester lifted his nose and sniffed the air. "You're right," he gasped. "That does smell like a bunny being transformed into a bat." He jumped down from the bed and cried, "Let's go!" We charged down the hall and came to an abrupt halt in front of Pete's bedroom. My eyes filled with tears. But whether that was because of the incredible stench emanating from the other side of the door, or the thought of what was happening to Bunnicula, I couldn't be sure. All I knew was that there was a very good chance we were too late. We had to get inside. I began pawing at the door as Chester meowed for all he was worth. Howie yipped from the other side. Pete called out, "Go away!" I couldn't believe it. Miles had turned his two biggest fans into unwitting accomplices. How had he done it? Had he convinced them that this was nothing more than a magic trick, easily undone, when the truth was that Bunnicula could be transformed into a bat forever? I pawed harder, and, despite my distaste for it, began to bark. Mr. Monroe called up the stairs. "Pete, what's going on up there? Your mother and Toby aren't back yet, and someone's knocking at the door. Would you please answer it? My hands are covered with flour." "What is that smell?" Harold, why are you barking? Pete, do you hear me? Pete's bedroom door flew open. I hear you, he shouted as he flew past us and down the stairs. Chester and I looked inside the room and gasped at what we saw. There, with his back to us, was Miles Tanner hunched over Pete's desk. As usual, Edgar sat on his shoulder, and on the bed behind them lay a bat, its wings spread open. Chester saw it at the same time I did and came to the same sorrowful conclusion. Dead, he pronounced solemnly. The experiment was a failure. Oh, Bunnicula, I moaned. We were too late. We've got to show Mr. Monroe, Chester said. Grab him, Harold. Grab who? I asked. Miles? Edgar? Bunnicula, of course. But he's a bat. A dead bat. I'm aware of that. Now just grab him and run to the kitchen. Maybe there's still life in him. Maybe Mr. Monroe can call the vet. Maybe. I saw the look of desperation in Chester's eyes. What was the point in telling him how hopeless it was? I ran to Pete's bed and grabbed the bat that was once Bunnicula. Edgar flew at us, flapping his wings and snapping its beak. Miles jumped up, knocking over whatever it was that was on Pete's desk. Oh, he exclaimed, you startled us. Now look at this mess. I ran out of the room, Bunnicula tightened my jaws, and headed towards the stairs, where I collided with Pete and Kyle, who were on their way up. Where are you going? Pete asked. Hey! Hey, said Kyle, why does Harold have your old rubber bat in his mouth? Am I too late for the experiment? Did you get the volcano to work? I can't believe you got MT Grace to help you with your science homework. That is so cool. What's that smell? Is that the volcano? It's not what we're having for lunch, is it? 'Cause that's gross. How come your cat is always washing his tail? You have really weird pets. Hey, do you think Mr. Tanner will want you to meet my pets? They're not as weird as yours, but... Kyle's voice trailed off as the boys disappeared into Pete's room, and I spat out the rubber bat and looked for Chester. He was sitting as far down the hall as possible. I don't think I need to tell you what he was doing. That must be the cleanest tail in town, I remarked. He took his time answering. A slight misjudgment, a wee misinterpretation of the data. Not that I blame you, Harold. Blame me? I cried. You're the one who... Harold, Chester said. Let's not play the blame game, shall we? The important thing is that the transformation has not taken place yet. Yet? We can still stop it in time. What we need is a plan. Oh no, I said with a shudder, not another plan. Chester's plans have a way of... how shall I put this? Not working out! There was a knock on the front door. Coming, Mr. Monroe shouted from the kitchen. Pete, Kyle, Mr. Tanner, our guests are starting to arrive. I hope your mother and Toby get back soon. Pete, please come down here. Just a minute, Dad, Pete called back. We're cleaning up. The animals messed up our experiment. I've got it, Chester said, but we must act quickly. Chester, does this involve any more rubber animals? Because I gotta tell you, the taste of latex lingers. Chester snorted. No rubber animals, he said. Now here's the plan. And he whispered it in my ear. You want me to do what? I blurted when Chester was through telling me. Shh! But that could hurt Bunnicula. It could kill him. I thought this was about saving him. Don't worry, Chester said. He's sound asleep. He'll be so relaxed he won't feel a thing. Now go quickly before Miles notices. Did you ever find yourself doing something that, even while you're doing it, you're asking yourself, how'd I get myself into this? Have I lost my mind? Well, this was one of those moments. Of course, I have a lot of those moments living with Chester. But this was one of the craziest ever. There I was, hiding in the closet in the guest bedroom, clutching Miles Tanner's precious black bag in my teeth, waiting for a signal from Chester to make a mad dash, and... I couldn't bring myself to think about the last part. Bunnicula, I whispered, if you're in there, please forgive me for what I'm about to do. I heard the sound of footsteps as Miles and Pete and Kyle passed quickly by the open guest door and down the stairs. I heard the flapping of Edgar's wings. I heard the front door open and a woman's voice saying, Hello, I hope we're not too early. I heard the timer go off in the kitchen, and I heard Mr. Monroe call out, Pete, please make our guests comfortable. I'll be right there. And then I heard Chester say, This is it, Harold. Go!